What's up YouTube? Scott here with the 9 to 5 Gamer. Welcome to the channel. Today's actually the first video and I'm just going to start things with kind of a highlight and overview of the handheld consoles that kept me busy in 2024. Now, I would say that I'm a casual gamer. I've got, as the channel says, a 9 to 5 job, a family. So the content that I'm going to be bringing you guys is primarily things that you can pick up and play maybe an hour or two a day. You know, I love AAA titles as much as the next person. There's nothing better than playing Red Dead Redemption 2 on a OLED ultra-wide monitor, but as I get older, I have less time for things like that, and I start to appreciate the ability to just pick up a game and play. You know, I no longer have the hours that I used to learn about crafting systems and explore these massive open worlds, to where if I put the game down for a couple weeks, I feel like I can't get back into it because I've forgotten so many of the mechanics. So I found myself over the last few years really taking a big interest in retro games, or even just games from the early 2000s, which were things from my childhood. So I understand these games a lot better now than I did when I was a kid, and I enjoy the simplicity. The nostalgia definitely runs deep. So the handheld to kind of start things off is what really got me into retro gaming. And this is the Anbernic RG351P. I kid you not, you can pick up one of these for about 50 bucks, I believe, on Amazon nowadays. And I have sunk hundreds of hours into this device, both playing it and just tinkering, because that's one of the things I enjoy is just getting certain things to run on certain devices. So this device has a 3.5-inch IPS display. I would say it's pretty pocketable. It's quite a lot of device for 50 bucks. And I primarily use this to play things like Game Boy Advance, original Game Boy. You can play a little bit of Dreamcast on here. I'm not a fan of Dreamcast on this small of a screen. You can play Super Nintendo, Genesis. You can port over some games, which I'll talk about here in a bit. You can use this to play most PlayStation portable games, PSP games, PlayStation 1 games. You can do a little bit of Nintendo DS and Nintendo 64, but I would say those are really pushing the limits of this device. And then finally, Game Boy Color. What I spent most of my time playing was Game Boy Advance on here because the screen and the aspect ratio is just perfect for playing Game Boy Advance. And on a lower performance game like Game Boy Advance, I'm getting anywhere from 5 to 6 to 7 hours of playtime on this device. So I've spent a ton of device gaming on the go with this. And I'm going to do a much more in-depth review on all these handhelds, but just kind of wanted to show you what I used in 2024 and what I liked about them. So this device, super easy to use, pocketable, very easy to get into the emulation retro gaming if that's what you're interested in. Now, the other device I spent a lot more time with than I expected is, as I dove deeper into retro gaming, I started to appreciate original hardware. You know, emulation's great because it's easy to get in and out of. There's little to no cost, right, aside from some of the hardware items. But I started to really enjoy playing the original hardware. I started to appreciate the nostalgia from it, right? So I started going out and picking up cartridges. And what I came across was a company, actually an individual, that was taking Game Boy Advance SPs, putting a new shell and new buttons on them, and then installing a modern IPS display. And I would argue that I've got probably 200-300 hours now into using this Game Boy Advance SP. It has a newer battery in it, a new, like I said, IPS display that makes it feel a lot more modern. As you can see, I've been playing Mother 3 recently, which is a title I'll do some review content on because it's just an absolute classic hidden gem. But this new display makes it just much more enjoyable to play. It has a newer battery in it and adapters to use 3.5mm headsets and charge via USB, which makes it really nice. So this is a traditional Game Boy Advance SP that's just been cleaned up with a new shell, new buttons, and a newer display. And I have really enjoyed this clamshell design. This brings me back to my childhood when I had this Game Boy Advance SP originally. So I spent a lot of time with that. It's also enjoyable to kind of peruse eBay for cartridges and see if you can get deals on original games. The other handheld, going to the kind of the original hardware aspect again, that I spent a lot of time with, is a Nintendo DS. I think this was probably peak Nintendo handheld right here. You know, any of these consoles that I've been using primarily have been to play 2D games, right? Side scrollers, top down, isometric. Because when you get into 3D games even on this device, that's when you really start to see the age, right? Where some of that nostalgia is going to get washed out. I would tell you the Nintendo DS was the peak in terms of graphical performance and easy pick up and play, I think, for handheld. And these Nintendo DSs you can pick up so cheap on the used market. I think I probably paid $60 for this device, and it's in really great shape. I'm surprised at the battery life. I get 5-6 hours out of this thing. And again, super easy to just pick up and play. And it goes along with kind of the white theme that you guys see that I have going. So I would say that I've spent a few hundred hours on this device as well in 2024, and it's been really enjoyable. Again, I'm going to do kind of in-depth reviews on all these at some point for you guys, but just kind of doing a highlight overview today. The other item, and this was definitely more of a splurge, this is something I got on a pre-order for when it was first announced and kind of stuck with it for a while, but this is the AYN Loki Mini Pro. So this is essentially AYN, and you've probably heard of them because they also make some other devices, Android devices like the Odin, which we'll talk about. But the AYN Loki Pro, this was really kind of their attack at the Steam Deck. And the reason I landed on this is simply because it runs it can run a Windows operating system versus the Steam OS. So I still run Steam on here to play all kinds of things like World of Warcraft, the original Fable, Half-Life, Stardew Valley, Red Dead Redemption 1 just came out on PC. Those of you that might know that, I'll launch that real quick just so you guys can see it. But this is a Windows-based handheld. It's crazy to think it took Rockstar, what, 10 years to finally release Red Dead Redemption 1 on PC? Maybe longer. People have been emulating it for a while, and I was one of those people that emulated Red Dead Redemption 1. I will tell you this does actually, the PC port performs really well. It's got a very high frame rate, and I do think it upscales to 4K. I have not tried it on my ultra-wide monitor, but we'll go ahead and dive in here. Just so you can kind of see gameplay on this device. I would tell you this is probably pushing the peak performance of this device here, playing a game like this. It definitely can play other, 5, 6, 7-year-old AAA titles. I played Half-Life 2 a lot on here, and as I mentioned, I play World of Warcraft Classic on here. You can certainly play some newer things like Fortnite and things like that, but yeah, here's Red Dead Redemption 1. Very enjoyable game to play on here. Very smooth. So we'll go ahead and we'll close out of this and we'll move on to the last handheld that kind of kept me busy in 2024. Quit that there. And we'll set this guy aside. The last one is actually from AYN as well, and that is the AYN Odin. Now, I'm not always purchasing the latest and greatest technology. This AYN Odin was the original Odin. So this is a handheld from the same brand that brought us the Loki, but this is an Android-based firmware. So think of this as an Android cell phone, essentially, with a controller built around it. So that allows you to run and play Android video games natively, but then also run any of the Android-based emulators. So for example, like I've got Dolphin on here, and I'm running GameCube games, right? So I could open up Super Mario Sunshine, for example. I spent quite a bit of time with this device as well. I would say it's not necessarily pocketable, but it adds in a lot of quality of life things that you don't get with some of these smaller emulation devices, such as Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and USB-C, right? So this can very effectively run things like Super Mario Sunshine, Bully on PlayStation 2. So this is the original AYN Odin. As I mentioned, this is running an Android firmware. Pretty good size screen. See nice contrast there. And again, I've spent a lot of time with this device. So my goal of this channel is to bring you guys review content, inspire you to maybe pick back up gaming, or just find some ways to maybe check out a little bit every day, right? Life's gotten a lot harder nowadays. You know, I feel like we're all making comments about missing the old times and some of that nostalgia from when we were kids. And that's what retro gaming has done for me. It's allowed me to check out for an hour or two a day and kind of dive into something else that doesn't require, you know, a ton of effort like some of these newer AAA titles do. So if that sounds appealing to you guys, please come along for the journey, like and subscribe, and look forward to bringing you guys more videos.